My name is Derek, and I made a terrible mistake that night at the Grandview Theater. I'd worked there for years, just a regular employee, sweeping the aisles, selling popcorn, cleaning up after the last show. The theater was old, creaky, and often felt like a relic from another time, but it had its charm. One night, I was scheduled for a late shift. We had just finished the last screening of the night, and most of the staff had already left. I was about to lock up when I noticed something odd. A film reel had been left on the counter in the lobby. It was unmarked, completely anonymous. No label, no studio name, just an empty canister that somehow felt wrong. Curiosity got the better of me. I decided to play it. I took the reel up to the projection booth and loaded it in. The screen flickered to life, and what I saw made my stomach drop. It was a performance, a play of sorts. The scene was set on a stage, with actors in costumes, but there was something off about them. They didn't move like real people. They were stiff, almost mechanical, and their faces were covered by masks. The audience in the background was eerily quiet, their faces hidden in darkness. But something about the atmosphere made my heart race. I leaned forward in the booth, my hands gripping the control panel. The scene unfolded, but it was strange, unsettling. The actors moved closer together, speaking in hushed tones, though their lips never moved. Then, the stage lights flickered, and the figures on stage, they turned toward the camera. All of them, they stared directly at me, their eyes vacant but knowing. The scene on screen changed. The camera now faced the projection booth, the view from the theater, as if the film was taking place in the exact room where I was sitting. I froze. On screen, the actors were now standing in front of the booth, looking directly at me. Their movements were jerky, unnatural. And then one of them spoke, but not through the speakers. It was a voice that came from behind me, right next to my ear. "You shouldn't have watched." I whipped around, but there was nothing there. The booth was empty. The screen flickered again. The actors were now in the aisle, moving down the rows, walking toward the booth with unnatural speed. I jumped up, knocking over the chair. I ran toward the exit, but it was locked. The door wouldn't open. Panic set in. I was trapped. The figures were getting closer. I could hear their footsteps, their breath, even though the screen was silent. I turned back to the screen, and to my horror, the actors were standing at the booth door. Their masks were gone. Their faces were twisted, distorted in agony. The film went black. I don't know how long I sat there. I don't know how I got out of the theater, but I remember the chill on my skin, the echoing silence that followed me the entire way home. The next day, the reel was gone. The projector had stopped working. The Grandview Theater was quiet once more, but I know what I saw, and now, every night, when I close my eyes, I can hear those footsteps following me. My name is Alex, and I never should have stayed after hours. The Silverbrook Cinema was known for its quirky history, a theater that had seen better days. People said it was haunted, but I never put stock in those stories. I worked as a projectionist, a quiet job where I could focus on films and be left alone. That was until I found the reel. It was buried deep in the storage room, forgotten, collecting dust like it had been left there on purpose. No label, no information, just a faded strip of film that seemed oddly inviting. I decided to play it. It was around midnight when I set up the projector. The theater was empty, just how I liked it. The film flickered to life, grainy and distorted, showing a street scene. It was quiet at first, no sound. The camera slowly zoomed in on a lone figure walking down the sidewalk. I leaned forward, intrigued. The figure was dressed in an old-fashioned suit, the kind from the 1940s. His face was out of focus, just a blur of gray. He moved slowly, deliberately, as though the world around him didn't exist. Then, the streetlights flickered. I froze. The figure stopped and turned toward the camera. He looked directly at me. My breath caught in my throat. The camera shifted. Now it was focused on the interior of the cinema. The seats were filled with people, all sitting still, faces hidden in shadow. I recognized a few of them, but the rest, I didn't. They were all watching the screen. Then, one by one, they began to turn their heads toward me. I turned around. No one was there. When I looked back at the screen, the people in the seats were closer. The film was distorted, the frame shaking as if something was interfering with the projector dot. And then the man in the suit appeared in the theater, standing at the back, staring at me with those hollow eyes. I jumped to my feet, but the film kept playing, the man moving closer, his smile widening with every frame. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The film sped up, and the people in the seats now crowded around the screen. They weren't watching the film anymore. They were staring at me. Then everything went dark. The theater was silent. I don't remember running out of the projection booth. I don't remember leaving the theater, but somehow I found myself standing outside, shaking uncontrollably. The next morning, I went back to the theater. The reel was gone. The projector was off. The seats were empty. But when I looked at the screen, I saw the man in the suit, standing in the frame, looking out into the audience. I never went back. But sometimes, when I walk past cinema, I swear I see the lights flicker, and I know he's still watching. My name is Joel, and I used to love working the night shift at the Crescent Cinema. But after that night, I don't think I'll ever step into a theater again. It was a slow evening only. A handful of customers had come in. By the last showing, the place was practically empty. At 11:45 p.m., the final credits rolled in Theater 3. Everyone had left, or so I thought. I went in to do a quick cleanup, sweeping up spilled popcorn and collecting abandoned cups. The screen was still on, casting a dim glow over the seats. That's when I saw him, a man sitting in the very last row. He was completely still, facing forward, as if the movie hadn't ended. "Sir," I called. No response. I sighed and stepped closer. "The theater's closed." "You have to." He turned his head. My stomach dropped. His face was wrong. It wasn't just pallid, was blurred, like a smudged photo. His eyes were too dark, too empty. And then he smiled. Not a normal smile. A slow, deliberate stretch of his lips, wider than it should have been. I stumbled back. My heart pounded as I fumbled for my radio. But before I could speak, the screen flickered. The credits were rolling again, but instead of actors' names, it was something else. A list of dates. The most recent one was that very night. Next to it, a name. Joel Carter. My name. The lights cut out. I ran. I don't remember how I got to the lobby, but I didn't stop running until I was outside, gasping for breath. The next morning, I told my manager what had happened. He paled. "The last matinee," he whispered. "You saw him?" I begged him to explain, but he just shook his head and handed me my final paycheck. I didn't argue. I just took the money and left. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't been near a theater since, but every night, I hear the hum of a projector in my apartment, and I know my name was in the credits. That means my show isn't over yet. My name is Travis, and I was the only one in the theater that night. At least, that's what I thought. I had just started working at the Regal Crest Cinema, a rundown theater that barely saw customers. My manager, an old guy named Walter, gave me a simple rule. Never start a movie after closing. I broke that rule. It was past midnight, and I was bored. I found an old reel labeled silent screening, -1931. No studio name, no details. Just that title. I loaded it into the projector, grabbed some popcorn, and sat in the back of Theater 6. Big mistake. The film started without sound. The screen showed an empty stage, the kind used for live performances. Heavy red curtains swayed as if something was moving behind them. But there was no wind. The camera held on the curtain for too long. 5 minutes, 10, 15. I felt uneasy, like I was waiting for something awful to happen. Then, the curtains parted. A man stepped onto the stage. No, not a man. His limbs were too long, his movements too stiff, like an old marionette. Without strings, his face was pale, featureless, except for a gaping mouth stretched in a silent scream. He turned, looked straight into the camera. The lights in the theater flickered. I gripped the seat, my pulse hammering. On screen, the figure twitched, stepping closer. The camera angle shifted, tilting, shaking like the cameraman was running. A shadow passed in front of the lens, and then the screen cut to black. The theater went silent, too silent. No hum of the projector, no faint buzz from the lights, just nothing. I stood up, every nerve in my body screaming at me to leave. But as I turned toward the exit, I froze. Someone was sitting in the front row. They hadn't been there before. A single figure, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, perfectly still. I couldn't see his face. I didn't want to. I bolted, ran through the empty lobby, burst out into the cold night. The second I stepped outside, the sounds of the world returned. Traffic, distant voices, the hum of streetlights, but the theater behind me remained silent. I quit the next day. Walter didn't ask why. He just nodded and muttered, "Told you not to start a movie." I don't know what I watched that night. I don't know who or what sat in the front row. But I know one thing. Some films aren't meant to be seen. My name is Ryan, and I used to love watching horror movies. But after what happened at the Grandview Theater, I can't even look at a screen anymore. It was supposed to be a normal closing shift. The last showing had ended, the customers had left, and I was making my final rounds. Everything was routine until I passed Theater 7. The screen was still on. I frowned. We hadn't scheduled any late-night films. I peeked inside. The seats were empty, but the projector whirred softly, playing something I didn't recognize. Black and white footage flickered on the screen. It showed the theater's lobby, our lobby. The camera angle was high, like it had been filmed from the security cameras, and then I saw myself. I was on screen, standing right where I was now, peering into Theater 7. My breath hitched. I lifted my hand slowly, and the me in the film did the same. Perfectly synchronized. Then, in the background of the footage, something moved. A figure. It emerged from the darkness of the theater behind me. I spun around, nothing on the screen. The figure stepped closer. My heart pounded as I turned back to the film. It was a tall, shadowed shape, its face obscured, moving toward me, like a glitch in reality. I reached for my radio to call security, but my fingers trembled too much. The figure in the film was almost at me now, its outline flickering like a broken projection, and then it stopped. Right behind me, the screen went black. The air around me turned ice cold. I bolted. I ran straight to the lobby, nearly breaking the exit door's lock as I shoved my way outside. I didn't stop running until I was blocks away, gasping for breath under the buzzing glow of a street lamp. The next morning, I quit. I never went back. But sometimes, when I pass by the Grandview, I swear I see something through the glass doors. Something standing just inside the lobby, waiting. And worst of all, the marquee still has my name on it. Now playing, Ryan, final show. My name is Ethan, and I made the mistake of playing a film that should never have been watched. I work at the Orion Theater, an old, nearly abandoned cinema that only stays open because of nostalgia. On slow nights, I sometimes explore the storage rooms, sifting through dusty film reels and forgotten posters. That's how I found it. A tin canister, unmarked, buried beneath a pile of outdated reels. No label, no markings, just a rusted container that felt heavier than it should have. Curiosity got the best of me. I carried it up to the projection room and loaded it into the old reel-to-reel projector. The film was silent, black and white, crackling with age. The screen showed an empty theater, our theater. The seats were all vacant at first. Then, one by one, they started to fill. Figures faded into existence like shadows melting into place. They sat motionless, staring straight ahead. Their faces, I couldn't make them out, blurred, distorted, as if the film refused to capture them properly. I felt a chill creep up my spine. I turned to leave, but the door locked. I hadn't locked it. My breath came faster. The film flickered. The figures in the audience shifted, all turning their heads in unison. Not toward the screen, toward me. The projector groaned. The image distorted. The camera angle changed. Now, it was showing the projection booth. My booth. My hands shook as I reached for the power switch. But before I could touch it, the bulb burst. The room plunged into darkness. A whisper slithered through the air, not from the speakers, from behind me. I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember running down the emergency exit. But I remember the cold, the weight of unseen eyes pressing against me as I stumbled into the street. The next day, I went back. The reel was gone. The tin canister, missing. No one had seen it. No one believed me. But at night, when I try to sleep, I hear the whisper again. And I know the film is still playing somewhere, waiting for its next audience. My name is Daniel, and I was the last person to leave the Crestwood Cinema before it shut down. But I wasn't alone. The theater had been struggling for years. Leaky ceilings, broken seats, barely any customers. Last week, the owner finally called. It quits. My job as a night shift supervisor ended with a simple task. Lock up one final time. Easy enough. Or so I thought. At around 11:45 p.m., as I did my last walkthrough, I heard a muffled sound coming from Theater 5. The problem? We hadn't had a showing in there all day. I pushed the door open. The projector was running. The screen flickered with grainy sepia-toned footage. An old movie. No, it was security footage. From inside the theater, the seats were full. People sat motionless, their backs straight, all facing forward. But the theater was empty. I swallowed hard and looked around. Rows and rows of vacant seats. Nothing there. But on the screen, they remained then, in perfect unison. Every figure in the footage turned their heads, not toward the screen, toward me. I staggered backward, my pulse hammering in my ears. The figures in the footage stared blankly, faces pale, sunken, and then, almost imperceptibly, they began to rise. A sound echoed behind me, creaking seats, shifting. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the lobby. The doors locked. My shaking hands fumbled with the keys, dropping them twice before finally getting one into the slot. As I turned the key, I made the mistake of glancing back. The entrance to Theater 5 stood open, and figures were stepping out. I didn't look at their faces. I couldn't. I wrenched the door open and stumbled outside. The second my feet hit the pavement, the sound stopped. No footsteps, no movement, just silence. I turned. The Crestwood Cinema stood dark and lifeless. I quit that night, but sometimes I swear I see those figures in my dreams, waiting, watching. And I know one thing for certain. The theater may have closed its doors, but the last showing never ended. My name is Jake, and I used to dream of being a filmmaker. Now, I just want to survive. I worked the night shift at the old Bellevue Theater, a nearly abandoned cinema that only screens indie films and cult classics. It's always quiet, Barely. Any customers? But last night, something changed. At around midnight, as I was cleaning up, the projector in Theater 3 turned on by itself. The schedule was clear, no late-night showings. I went to check, thinking maybe someone had left a reel running by mistake. The theater was empty. The film on screen was black and white, grainy, like an old silent movie. It showed a dimly lit hallway, one that looked eerily familiar. As I watched, a shadow moved across the frame. A man appeared, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, his face obscured. He walked slowly, deliberately, toward a door at the end of the hallway. I realized why it looked familiar. It was the hallway leading to the projection booth. My breath caught in my throat. The man in the film reached for the door handle. On screen, the camera angle shifted, showing the other side of the door inside the booth. Inside my booth, I turned around so fast, I nearly tripped over myself. The door was closed, locked. I hadn't locked it. On screen, the door in the film creaked open. A figure stepped inside. I banged on the door, trying to force it open. The film flickered. The camera zoomed in. The figure's hand reached toward something. The light switch. The screen cut to black dot, and so did the room. Everything went dark. I don't remember much after that. Just running, stumbling down the emergency exit, cold air slapping me in the face as I burst into the street. The manager found me outside the next morning, shaking. My uniform covered in dust, like I had been lying there all night. I don't know what I saw. I don't know who or what was in that film. But I know one thing. The Bellevue Theater is showing a new movie tonight, and I'm not staying to watch. My name is Ethan, and I have never believed in ghosts until the night I stayed late at the Rialto Theater. The Rialto is one of those old, forgotten cinemas that should have shut down years ago. The carpets are stained, the seats creak, and most of the projectors have been replaced with cheap digital screens. But there's one room they never upgraded, Theater 6. It's the only one that still runs on film reels, and no one ever uses it. Not because it's broken, but because of the stories. Employees whisper about a movie that plays there on its own, a silent film, one that was never in our inventory. They say if you watch it, something watches you back. I always thought it was a joke. Then, last Friday, I had to lock up alone. I was walking past Theater 6 when I heard the soft, rhythmic clicking of a film reel spinning. I stopped. The theater was supposed to be empty. The door was slightly open. Against my better judgment, I pushed it wider and stepped inside. The screen was lit up, casting an eerie glow over the vacant seats. But the film, it was strange. It showed an old theater, much like the Rialto, but dimly lit. The audience was dressed in outdated clothing suits, hats, long dresses, like something out of the 1920s. They all sat perfectly still, facing forward, watching something I couldn't see. Then, one by one, their heads turned, not toward the screen, toward me. I staggered backward, my breath caught in my throat. The figures in the film stared at me with hollow, empty eyes. Their mouths moved, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then, the camera in the film panned. It was showing the entrance of Theater 6. I spun around. The door behind me was closed. On screen, the camera slowly zoomed in. The door in the film creaked open. A shadowed figure stepped inside. My heart pounded. I turned to run, but the theater was no longer empty. Rows and rows of people, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, sat motionless in the seats. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes black voids. They weren't there a second ago. The film flickered. The figure on screen took another step into the theater closer. I bolted for the exit, shoving the door open and tumbling into the hallway. I didn't stop running until I was out of the theater, gasping for breath under the buzzing neon lights of the marquee. When I looked back, The screen inside Theater 6 had gone dark. The room was empty. The next morning, I tried to tell my manager. He just stared at me and said, "Theater 6 has been locked for years." Then who opened the door? My name is Lucas, and I used to love horror movies until I became part of one. I work as a projectionist at the Regal Grand, a rundown movie theater on the edge of town. It's one of those places that time forgot, with its peeling red velvet seats and a faint smell of butter-soaked nostalgia. We still project films on reels, something rare in this digital age. That's part of the charm, or at least it was. A few weeks ago, my manager, Richard, found an old film canister buried deep in the storage room. It had no label, no markings, nothing. Just a rusted tin with a thick layer of dust. He handed it to me, a mischievous grin on his face. "Think you can screen this for me tonight, Lucas? Maybe we found a lost classic." I should have said no. That night, after the last customers left, I set up the reel in the projector and hit play. The film flickered to life on the screen in the empty auditorium. At first, it was just static. Then, slowly, an image appeared, grainy black and white footage of an old theater, eerily similar to ours. The seats, the curtains, even the lobby. It was identical. Then I saw them. The audience in the film wasn't watching a movie. They were staring directly at me. I turned around, expecting an empty room, but my stomach dropped. There were people in the seats, now silent, motionless figures, their faces shadowed. They hadn't been there a second ago. The film continued. On screen, the camera panned to the projection booth. A man stood there, his back turned to me, adjusting the reels. But when he slowly turned around, my blood turned to ice. It was me. I stepped away from the projector, my hands shaking. The Lucas on the screen raised his hand and pointed at me. The figures in the audience rose from their seats. I ran. I don't know how I made it out, but I burst through the theater doors and into the cold night air. When I turned back, the screen was blank, the room empty. I told Richard what happened, but he just laughed. The next night, he stayed late to watch the film himself. He never came back. The police found his shoes in the middle of the auditorium, but nothing else. No body, no sign of struggle. Just his empty shoes. I quit the next day. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the sound of a film reel spinning, and I wonder if Richard is still watching, or if he's part of the film now. My name is Keaton Voss. I'm a demolition contractor. When buildings die, I help bury them. Last month, my crew was assigned to tear down a foreclosed suburban house in Eddington Hollow. Standard procedure: evict the rot, clean the bones, but the basement wasn't in the blueprints. The exterior was a one-story ranch. The plans showed a crawl space, nothing more. But inside, past the kitchen pantry, was a door we didn't expect. Steel, rusted, sealed shut with 6 different locks. We forced it open. The air hit us like a wet slapdamp, moldy, but something else. Metallic, like old blood. The stairs led down farther than any normal foundation should. 40 steps, then concrete. No walls, no furniture. Just a massive open basement, 10 meters high, shaped like a cube. In the center, a hole, circular, perfect. Jet black, no bottom. We dropped the rock, waited, nothing. I should have walked away right then, but I didn't. Curiosity's the real wrecking ball. That night, I dreamt of teeth. Rows of them, embedded in stone. Chewing slow, wet, rhythmic. The next day, the crew started hearing things. Whispers rising from the hole. One giganate said it was his dead mother's voice, calling him down. He jumped. We never heard the impact. When we tried to leave, the basement door wouldn't open. The locks had grown back, thicker, rooted into the walls like veins. One by one, my team disappeared. I'd hear screams behind me, turn, and find only dust. Sometimes the hole burped, loud and wet, like it had swallowed something whole. I tried climbing out. The stairs led in circles. Tried calling for help. My phone spoke back in my voice, but older, broken, weeping. Now it's just me. I haven't eaten in days, but I'm not hungry. The hole is. I can feel it. It breathes through the concrete. It watches, waits, listens to the cracks in my will today. It spoke not with words, but through the vibrations in the floor, like a pulse tapping out a message directly into my bones. You are the final layer. I don't know what it means, but I can't leave. I'm no longer trapped in the basement. I am part of it, and someday, when they build something new here, when children play above this cursed ground, they'll feel it. To dot the hunger, and the hole will open again. My name is Rowan Blake. I'm an audiologist. I study sound, its patterns, effects, and how it moves through space. It's a science. Or at least, it used to be. 3 months ago, I inherited my uncle's house in Durham Falls. An old place, with creaky floors and a locked basement. He died, mysteriously, no signs of violence. Just collapsed in the living room, hands over his ears. Eardrums burst. Naturally, I was curious. The key to the basement was taped under the kitchen sink. Typical Uncle Leo, paranoid and secretive. I unlocked the basement door and descended slowly, recorder in hand. It was empty, but then I noticed it. Silence, not just quiet. Total absence. No hum from the fridge. No wind, no creak of wood. Even my breath didn't make a sound. I tapped my foot, nothing. I played a tone from my recorder. It showed a waveform, but I heard nothing. And then, the waveform started reacting to something else, something I hadn't played. It was picking up a frequency I couldn't hear, but something down there could. I boosted the gain. What came through chilled my spine. A slow, rhythmic clicking, like knuckles tapping bone, followed by breathing, shallow, inhuman. I turned around. The stairs were still there, but now there were handprints on the wall, dozens, all at ear level, all facing inward. I ran upstairs, but the sounds followed me. In the night, I began hearing them behind the walls. The clicks, the breathing, sometimes whispers. Do you hear us? He made us listen. Now, you must too. I soundproofed the entire house. It didn't help then. Last week my ears started bleeding during sleep. When I checked my recordings, there were long passages of distorted whispers, not just one voice, hundreds, overlapping. Screaming beneath the surface, I slowed one down. It said, "You opened the gate." The silence was the seal. Yesterday, I destroyed the recorder, burned it, but I still hear them. Inside my head, louder every hour. They live in sound, feed on it, echo through it, and now I can't hear anything else. Only them. I wear earplugs now, noise-canceling muffs, but it doesn't stop the pressure. The crawling sensation in my ear, the urge to scream. Tonight, I go back down. Not to silence them, but to join them, to become the next sound beneath. My name is Ellis Crane. I'm a freelance photographer. I rent short-term homes for my projects. And this one, an old craftsman near Hollow Ridge, was just supposed to be another gig. Shoot, edit, move on. But the basement changed everything. It started when I went down to check the fuse box. The light bulb was burnt out, so I used my phone. The space was plain cement walls, a wooden shelf, nothing more, until I turned around to leave. The stairs were gone. In their place was another hallway, brick-lined, damp, humming like distant machinery. I took a step forward, thinking maybe I was turned around, then another. The door behind me slammed shut and vanished. I ran forward, screaming, but the hallway never ended. I walked for what felt like hours. Then, suddenly, I found myself back in the basement, or so I thought. The shelf was there, but the items were different. Old tools, rusted and strange. A small teddy bear with its face burned off, and the stairs. Still gone. I turned. Another hallway. I tried my phone. No signal. Battery at 83%. Stuck there. No matter how long I used it, the number wouldn't change. I kept walking. Again and again, I returned to the same basement. But each time, something had changed. Once, there were claw marks on the walls. Another time, blood pooled on the floor, still warm. Another, a noose hung from the ceiling beam that hadn't been there before. Then, I met him. A man, or something like one, standing in the corner, back turned, silent. I asked who he was. He turned his head, but not his body. Eyes missing. Skin pale and stitched like burlap. He said one word. Stay. I ran again. The next basement had mirrors on every wall, and in each one, I saw myself but older, thinner, terrified. In one mirror, my reflection reached out, fingers pressing against the glass from the other side, then whispered, "You've already died here." Again and again. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't know which loop is real. I sleep in the corner now, between loops, waiting for the next version of me to arrive. And I write this on the walls, hoping anyone will read it before they enter. If you're seeing this, do not go down the stairs. The basement never ends, and neither will you. My name is Dorian Fleet. I rent. Always have. Always will. I don't care about owning things. I like simplicity. Quiet. Controlled. So when I found this old duplex in Alder Creek, I was thrilled. The landlord told me the basement apartment hadn't been rented in years. Storage only, he said. Fine by me. I moved in upstairs. Everything was normal for a few weeks. Then, one night, I heard coughing. Below me. Deep, ragged, sick coughing. At 2:13 a.m., I figured someone had broken in. I called the landlord. He checked it out. Came back up pale. "No one's down there," he said. "It's locked. Always has been. Don't go near it." But the coughing kept happening. Same time. Every night. Then came the dragging sounds. Slow, like someone pulling something heavy across concrete. Followed by whispers. Male, low, and steady. Never angry. Never loud. Just talking. I started recording it one night. When I played it back, I heard a voice whisper clearly, "I know. You hear me?" I didn't sleep. I confronted the landlord, pressed hard. He finally cracked. "There was a man," he said. "Lived down there 20 years ago. Never left. Quiet guy. Until one day, he stopped paying rent. We went to evict him and found the whole apartment bricked up from the inside. No door." He shook his head. There was no door left. Just a wall where it used to be. We broke it down. The room was empty. No sign of him. Nothing but a chair, facing the wall and scratch marks all over the floor. He was never seen again. That night, I couldn't help myself. I went down. The lock was open. I stepped inside. The air was cold, wet, smelled like iron and rot. The room was empty, just like he'd said, except now there was a chair facing the wall and a man sitting in it. He didn't move, didn't speak. I whispered, "Hello." He slowly stood and turned his head, not his body, just his head dolled the way around, and smiled. I ran, slammed the door, locked it, but the sounds haven't stopped. They've only gotten louder. Last night, I woke to find my bedroom rearranged, the bed pushed against the wall, a chair in the center, facing me, and written on the ceiling above me, in black ash, "Your turn to sit." My name is Colton Reese. I flip old houses with my partner Jessa. We found this Victorian place on the outskirts of Briar Hollow, cheap, big, and falling apart. Perfect for profit. The basement, though, was a nightmare. Cold, damp, and choked with mildew. The walls were painted blood red, like someone tried to cover something up, ... Badly. Jessa said it gave her headaches. I told her it was mold. We started renovations anyway. First thing we noticed, nails in the walls. Hundreds of them. Randomly spaced, bent, old. Some still had bits of cloth stuck beneath. I figured it was some insane attempt at insulation. Just didn't buy it. She started having dreams about a girl behind the walls, her fingernails broken, her eyes missing. I kept working. Then I found the first word. I was scraping the paint when flakes peeled back and revealed something carved into the wood underneath. Just one word. Help. I showed Jessa. She begged me to stop. Said the girl in her dream had the same word carved into her palms. I laughed, nervously. Said it was a prank, or the house playing tricks. Then the bleeding started. The walls, we thought it was rust at first, but it was thick, sticky, and warm. It seeped from the baseboards at night. We cleaned it, painted over it. Next morning, it was back. And worse, there were now scratches beneath the paint. Not random, intentional, like something underneath was clawing to get out. We ripped open one section of the wall, found a cavity between the studs. Inside was a porcelain doll, cracked, missing its eyes. Its mouth was sewn shut with black thread. The same night, we heard thumping in the walls. Not rats. Rhythmic, like fists. Jessa left. Said she wouldn't step foot in that house again. I stayed. Now, every night, the scratching gets louder, closer. Last night, I followed the sound. There was a new message carved into the fresh paint. You left me here. I dreamt of a little girl. Her name was Lila. She had no eyes. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide. She screamed without sound. I woke up with blood under my fingernails. This morning, I found one of the walls, fully stripped, nails pulled out, paint gone. A message scrawled in what looked like ash. I remember you. I don't know who she is, or what I did, but she knows. Me. And now, when I stand in the basement, I can hear someone breathing inside the wall, waiting. My name is Ellis Varn. I don't believe in ghosts, demons, or any of that supernatural crap. I'm a man of logic, or I was. When my uncle died, he left me his house in Maine. I remembered it from childhood summers, dusty, dark, and always freezing in the basement. I hated that place, especially the mirror. It was a full-body antique, framed in blackened oak, covered with a moth-eaten sheet. No one ever touched it. He used to say, "That mirror doesn't show you. It shows the version that got left behind." Poetic nonsense, I thought. But when I moved in, I found it again. Exactly where I remembered at, the end of the basement hallway, resting against a wall like it had never moved in decades. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled off the sheet, and there I was. Only, not quite. My reflection blinked half a second too late. I smiled, it didn't. When I turned to leave, it watched me go. I told myself it was just nerves, a trick of the light, but it got worse. Every time I went downstairs, the mirror showed more differences. My reflection would frown when I laughed. It mouthed things when I was silent. Once, I leaned in close, and it whispered, "You're not the real one anymore." I locked the basement, but I started seeing glimpses of the mirror's version upstairs, in window reflections, microwave doors, even the rear-view mirror of my car, and always it was just a little off. A twitch, a grin, eyes just a bit too dark. One night, I heard footsteps in the basement. I had the only key. I opened the door and crept down. The mirror was gone, but carved into the wall, where it stood, was this message. Traded places. I ran to the nearest mirror in the house and looked into it. What I saw was perfectly me until it winked. I haven't been sleeping. I see it in every reflection now. Waiting. Growing bolder. Yesterday, I saw it feeding my cat. Today, it waved from the upstairs window when I was in the front yard. And just now, I heard the front door unlock. I'm holding this basement door shut from the inside, but I don't think it's trying to get in. I think I'm the one who's not supposed to leave. My name is Darren Hollow. I live alone. That's what makes this so hard to explain. The house was a fixer-upper I bought after the divorce. Quiet street, no neighbors in earshot. The real estate agent mentioned the basement needed some love. That was putting it kindly. The door to the basement had 4 locks on it. Odd, but I figured maybe the previous owner had security issues. I should have known better when I found scratch marks on the inside of the door, human-sized, desperate. The basement itself was wrong, not haunted, not cursed, just wrong. The air was too still, like it didn't belong to the house, like it hadn't moved in years. Concrete walls, single dangling bulb, and dust so thick it felt alive. There were 2 things down there. A pile of old coats in the corner, footprints in the dust that didn't match mine. I wear size 10 boots. These were bare feet, bigger, heavier, and there were 2 sets, one coming in from the stairs, one leading behind the coats. I lifted the coats and found nothing, just the wall. That night, I heard footsteps in the living room. Slow, deliberate, but when I checked, nothing. Every door still locked. I thought maybe I was losing it. Stress, isolation, old house sounds, until I started hearing the breathing low, wet, labored, like something trying to stay quiet. It came from under the floorboards, directly below my bed. I moved into the guest room upstairs, but it followed me. Last night, I spread flour on the floorboards in front of the basement door, just to prove I was wrong. This morning, there were footprints again, fresh ones, leading from the basement door to the kitchen, but only one set, mine, never showed up. That's when I realized, whatever's coming out, it's been walking with me, mimicking me. A second set of steps in perfect sync with mine, always just a half beat behind, so I wouldn't notice. I tested it today, stood perfectly still in my hallway, and I heard it. One step, right behind me. I turned, nothing, but the air was warm, like someone had just exhaled on my neck. Now it's 3:12 a.m. I'm locked in my bedroom. The lights are off. I can hear the stairs creaking up, not down. It's not hiding anymore. There are 2 sets of footsteps again, and only one of them is mine. My name is Nolan Crest. I restore old homes for a living, strip the rot, repaint the history, breathe life into what time tried to bury. But this last job, it broke me. The house belonged to the Margrave family, abandoned since the 60s. Locals called it cursed. I called it a paycheck. It stood alone on a hill outside Doven Creek, surrounded by fog and silence. The real work, they said, was in the basement. Of course it was. The stairs groaned under my boots. The smell hit me first, wet plaster and something else, sweet, foul, like meat gone soft. The basement was bigger than expected. Stone walls slick with moisture. One wall was painted over in layers, white, then gray, then black dot. My job was to strip it all. The first layer came off easy. Underneath, scribbles, childlike, faces with empty eyes. Hands reaching. I scraped more. Words appeared. He's not gone. I stopped, laughed it off. Probably some bored teenager tagging the walls before it was sealed. But as I worked, the room grew colder, and something strange happened. No matter how much I stripped, the same image remained beneath every layer. That face, pale, mouth open, screaming silently, eyes like gouged holes. By the third day, I started hearing things, whispers. Behind me, Nolan, very faint, but it knew my name. I checked my phone's recording app, left it running while I worked. When I played it back, I heard breathing and laughter. Not mine. Then came the knocking. Always 3 taps, always from inside the painted wall, not behind it, inside the very stone. As if something was waiting, buried in pigment and time. I should have left, but I didn't. I broke the wall open. Behind it was a narrow crawl space, too tight for comfort. Inside, I found a child's chair, rotten wood, and ropes. Dried red stains on the floor. On the ceiling above it, scratched into the stone, one sentence: "He makes us stay." I ran, left the tools, the job, everything. But last night, I woke up in my own home to find paint chips on my bed, the same colors from that wall dot. Then my phone rang. The caller ID said Margrave Basement. I didn't answer. Now, my bedroom walls are peeling. I didn't paint them, and beneath each layer, I see that same face, closer, clearer, and now, it's smiling. My name is Ellison Cade. I'm 31, a freelance illustrator, and until last month, I didn't believe in anything I couldn't see. That's changed now. I moved into this old Victorian house in Brixley, a small town tucked between hills and fog. Rent was cheap, the space was big, and the landlord warned me only about one thing: the basement. "Don't store anything down there," he said, his voice a bit too tight. "Just leave it alone." Of course, I didn't listen. The basement door was behind the kitchen, old and crooked. The first night I opened it, a cold draft hit me in the face. The stairs groaned under my weight, like the wood was trying to speak. When I reached the bottom, the light bulb buzzed but stayed on. The room was empty: concrete floor, stone walls, and a crawl space covered by a rusted metal grate. That first night, I heard it, breathing, soft, wet, slow. I froze, thought it might be the furnace. But it wasn't connected to anything. And it wasn't a machine sound, it was organic, rhythmic, alive. The next day I rationalized it. Maybe air pressure, maybe rats. But I started noticing strange things. My toothpaste cap would be off. The chairs were slightly out of place. One morning I found muddy footprints coming from the basement door to the center of my living room, bare, human-like feet. But no mud on the floor beyond that point. Like whoever it was just vanished. I set up my phone as a night cam, facing the basement door. At 3:13 a.m., the door creaked open, though I had locked it. Something stepped out, not fully visible, humanoid, but long-limbed. It tilted its head toward the camera, then walked backward into the dark, as if rewinding. I deleted the footage. I couldn't bear to see it again. A week ago, I tried to seal the basement, hammered wooden planks across the door, nailed them shut. That night, I heard splintering wood, then breathing right outside my bedroom. Last night, I finally snapped. I went down again, this time, armed with a crowbar. The grate in the floor was slightly ajar. I pried it open and found a tunnel, narrow, wet, carved into the ground by something not quite human. The breathing was louder now, so close I could feel it in my throat. Then I saw them. It is hundreds of small, blinking milky eyes staring at me from the tunnel walls, and a hand too many fingers reached up, touching my boot. I screamed, ran. I didn't stop until morning. Now it's daytime. I'm writing this as fast as I can, because tonight, I'm not sleeping here. I've packed my car. But as I opened the front door to leave, I heard breathing. Not from the basement this time, from inside my closet. My name is Corvin Ellis, and I swear to you, I'm not insane. Not yet. I bought this house for the quiet. I needed a place to write, away from the city noise. I didn't ask why it was so cheap. I didn't care. The house was old, creaky, and came with a large basement. When I first moved in, I noticed a thick iron furnace down there. Antique, coal-fed, probably 100 years old, heavy as a tomb. It was bolted shut. I should have left it that way. The first time I went down, I heard tapping. Not loud, just ... deliberate. Like someone drumming with their fingernails from inside the furnace. I leaned in, stupidly curious. Then came the whisper. Cold in here. I jumped back, ran upstairs, told myself it was the wind, the pipes, old metal, expanding. All the excuses a rational man makes, but the tapping didn't. Stopped that every night at 3:17 a.m. Always 3:17. Just a light rhythm. Tap tap followed by a voice. Always the same words. Always from inside the sealed furnace. Cold in here. I tried to open it once. The bolts were rusted, fused. I couldn't budge them. So I did what any idiot would do. I ignored it. Put in headphones. Drank too much. Wrote less and less. Then last week, I found soot on the basement floor. No fire had been lit, but someone or something had tracked it across the concrete in perfect bare footprints. Size 11, like mine. 2 nights ago, the furnace door was open, just ... gaping, like a mouth, finally unsealed. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I ran, slammed the door, and shoved a bookshelf in front of it. That night, I dreamed of fire. Not normal fire. Living fire. With limbs. With a voice like scorched paper. It stood over my bed and whispered, "Thank you." Yesterday, I found ash on my pillow. Tonight, I decided to end it. I went down with a crowbar, flashlight, and every ounce of fear I could bottle into anger. The furnace door was closed again, as if mocking me. I pried it open, empty. No coal, no fire, just a deep, dark hole that went down, far deeper than the floor. No bottom in sight. Then I saw the fingernails, scraped along the inner walls. Human, dozens of them, some fresh. Still red dot. And then I saw my name, Corvin Ellis, carved in perfect block letters on the back wall inside the furnace. Something moved behind the letters. I slammed the door and bolted it shut again. I'm upstairs now, typing this on my old laptop. The power's gone. It's getting cold. And I just heard something heavy drag itself up the stairs. The tapping has started again, but this time, it's not from the furnace. It's on my bedroom door.